Hello, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Green Screen. As you can see, there's no green screen behind me. And for this episode, I'm sort of going to continue along with what I set up last week by doing the Tao of Pooh. Okay. And really, I was going to go in a completely different direction for this episode, book wise. But as I was looking through my bookcase, and I was thinking, oh, I could do it on that. I can do it on that. And then this book caught my eye, and I said, yeah, this is going to be perfect for this episode. Absolutely perfect. So, this book that I'm going to talk about is sort of a self help book. And I'm not really a self help book type of person. Um, if I go to a bookstore, if I went to a library, you would not find me in the self help section because opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one, and all of them stink. Inclu- and I wasn't going to get giddy or goofy on this episode, and I just basically just shot that to hell. Okay. Um, so yeah, that's why I don't do self help books. But I'm into philosophy. If you guys don't know, I am into philosophy, and I will be covering a book that sort of jump started or really sort of really pushed me into the whole philosophy thing. And yeah, so I'll cover that in another episode. But for this episode, um, I haven't had this book very long, and I haven't. The way I came across it isn't how I normally would come across a book. So picture it. It's 2023, and Lisa is sort of getting acquainted with Northern Virginia and DC and Maryland and all of that business. And I credit my experience as a New Yorker with exploring the metro system, right? So I've been able to successfully explore that system. It's not very difficult, it's much simpler than New York system. And so I often make that summer, I was getting to know the metro and making trips into DC. I wanted to um, sort of decrease my anxiety of living in a new area in which I know no one, because I truly knew no one when I moved down here. I moved down here for a job offer that did not work out in the end, and I bought property and I decided to stay. So I really don't know anyone here. So there's this stress and anxiety that comes with the unknown, that fear of, when you're driving into DC, because yes, DC traffic is absolutely horrendous. Okay. You have two different states and a district all competing for road space. And rarely does it work out very well as far as you getting to where you need to go by a certain time. If you need to get somewhere by a certain time, you should be leaving at least 20 minutes prior, because nine times out of 10, you will get stuck in traffic. It moves very quickly. It's kind of weird. Like there's this Charlie Foxtrot, former military, you know what that means. There's this Charlie Foxtrot that accumulates, and it sort of like grows and grows, and then all of a sudden, poof, and cars are moving again. But in any event, so Washington, D.C., you were never bored. All right. You have the National Mall, in which you have one, two, three, four, five, six, seven museums that surround the National Mall. Those museums are the Museum of Asian Art. There's the Sackler Building, and I forget the name of the other building. So there's that museum, Museum of American Museum for Asian Art. Then there's the Museum for African Art. Now, these are all like next to each other on the mall if you've never been to DC. Next door to the Asian art is the Smithsonian Castle. Next to the castle is, I want to say Sea Air Space is the next museum over. And then after, no, 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 I'm sorry, the Hirshhorn. The Hirshhorn comes after that. Then comes Sea Air Space. And then comes finally on one side of the mall is the National Museum for the American Indian, which is a really dope museum. If you ever get a chance to get to DC, and if you only had a chance to see two museums, and I know I'm going to get a whole bunch of hissing from Black folks, but the two dopest museums I think people should explore if they have a limited time in DC is Air and Space. I'm sorry, I don't mean to give you the finger. Air and Space Museum and the Museum for the American Indian. The Museum of the American Indian is constructed, it's spiritual. There's an oculus. And when you go into the main lobby, it's humongous. It's a domed ceiling that leads to an oculus. And I haven't seen what the oculus does on a full sunny day, but I will do that this summer. Okay, so that's one side of the mall, and I know I'm digressing. I will get to it, I promise you. On the other side of the mall, you have the National History Museum. I know I'm not saying it right. Is the National Museum of Natural American History? Yeah, I think. I always get the names sort of messed up, but it's the Museum of American History. Then you have the Museum of Natural History. That's where they have all the stuffed pachyderms and stuff like that. Now, the museums that I've just mentioned, they're all part of the Smithsonian, with the exception of one that's on the mall that takes up the most space on the other side of that grassy area that you see. And it's the National Gallery of Art. The National Gallery of Art is not part of the Smithsonian. I only found out recently. I don't know why this didn't click, but it is not part of the Smithsonian. It's its own museum, and it's huge, huge. It's got two buildings. There's the original building, that's the West Building, and then connected, you can either go underneath or you can go across the courtyard to the more newer section of the National Gallery of Art, and that's the East Wing. And that was built by the famed architect I.M. Pei, who he's just an amazing architect. He was, I don't want to say he was Chinese. I think he was Chinese, and he passed away at the age of 101. And actually, that's okay. I'm put a pin in that. Put a pin in an I.M. Pei and the fact that he died at 101. Let's put a pin in that. Okay. All right. Moving forward. So when I'm making these trips into DC, it was difficult. And the reason why it was difficult, not because of the metros, because I was suffering from sciatica. Oh, my days. My sciatica was just made it so difficult to walk. Anyone who's ever suffered from this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And it was in my left buttock, right? That where I was feeling that pain all the way down through my thigh. And so it made walking for long periods of time extremely difficult, just, just painful as hell. And I'll talk about that too, because that all falls into the book that I'm going to talk about for this episode. So I go to the National Gallery of Art and I'm so overwhelmed because it had been a minute since I've been in a museum. Now, I'm not a stranger to museums at all. I love art and history museums. I love them. The stories just fascinate me to no end. As a matter of fact, when I was living in Connecticut, I was studying to be a docent at the Wadsworth Atheneum, and I so enjoyed the training. I truly felt like I got a master's level education in art history at the Wadsworth Atheneum. So, I just want to give a shout out to them, okay? And unfortunately, I wasn't able to complete the training because I was working as a technical writer for a government contractor, and it required me to be at work at 7 o'clock in the morning, which means I would have to leave my house at 5. And there was no way that I could do this, complete the docent training. And I was supposed to be paired with a mentor and follow the mentor. There was no way that I was going to be able to do that and still get to my job and do that. So I had to make the ultimate sacrifice, and so I ended my training. So, but my experience there had me fall in love with museums. I'm so at peace when I'm in museums. It's so quiet. Yeah, people are yakking, but they're kind of respectful of the space. So they have these whispered, quiet conversations. So it's like being at the library, right? It's a visual library. That's how I look at art museums. So, being down here, I was losing my mind because you have the Smithsonian American Art Museum, of which I am in training to be a docent, and I will get to that in a minute also. You have the Renwick Gallery that I am also in training to be a docent at, because the Smithsonian American Art Museum and the Renwick Gallery, they're both one entity. Okay, so I have to do training for both. Then you have then you have trying to think of the other. You have the American, the National Asian Art Museum. You have that for not only because they do have scrolls, they have pottery, they have carvings, they have statues, they have blocks of granite with writings on them and stuff like that. So it's a mix of art and Asian history. So you have that, and then you have the art museums. Then you have. I'm trying. Right now, my mind is drawing a complete blank. But but you have all this access to art down down in DC. So I'm wandering around the National Art Gallery, and struggling with the sciatica, and I'm hungry, you know. So what I always like to do, and what I've been doing since I've been down here, is whenever I go to a museum, I always visit the gift shop, no matter what the museum is, and I'm always buying a little trinket. One of these days I'll share my trinkets that I've accumulated, not just here, but in my days when I lived in New England, and I often visited MFA Boston, another shot, one of my other favorite museums. Also, the other art museum that's like literally like two, maybe like, I can't say a block away. It's just weird, but there is the oh my gosh, I've forgotten the museum, the art museum. It'll come to me. It'll come to me. It'll come to me. But it's right. It's not too far away from the MFA. But in any event, so I'm at the National Gallery, and it's huge. Okay, there are upper levels, and then there's sort of like the underground level that you can take if you want to get from the West Wing to the East Wing, and they have a nice little escalator. A vertical escalator, and it's got like flashing lights and stuff like that. It's really cool. And this is on the way to the cafeteria. So the cafeteria is downstairs. You get to see a waterfall from the front. You get to see the back of the waterfall, which is equally beautiful. So you have all that water feature going on. And at the time when I went to the museum, I was tickled to death because I have allergies. I have food allergies. I've had them since I was a child, and I'm allergic to practically everything. I can't have seafood, shellfish, any fruits that are grown along the ground, because I am allergic to pollen. I'm allergic to ragweed, oak, birch, maple, um, all kinds of nuts. I cannot touch a nut. The only nut, the tree nut that I can tolerate for whatever reason is coconut, because coconut is a tree nut. Um, and so I was tickled to death because at the time they had carrot cake without walnuts. You people don't understand. All you people that love nuts and you put almonds and walnuts on everything, bravo for you. But for us peanut or nut allergy people, absolutely frustrating when you want a carrot cake and you go to any kind of restaurant or whatever, and you can never get a carrot cake without the walnuts. Rarely. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, bet. So sit down, I eat, I'm a happy camper, because I had my carrot cake without nuts. Unfortunately, I can't take it home in a doggy bag because food is not allowed in the museum space, and I plan to go and do some more exploring. All right, so not too far away from the cafeteria is one of three gift shops. I think that's in the National Gallery or two. I'm not sure. I know there's two definitely, and I've been to both of them. But there is a gift shop down not too far away from the cafeteria. And like I said, whenever I go to a museum, I want to buy a little trinket, not too expensive, because I will say that things are definitely overpriced in museum gift shops. I understand, it's about supporting the museum. I get that. But I'm not about to break the bank unless it's something that I'm really, really just like I can't walk away from and I'm willing to charge it, right? So I'm walking around the gift shop. I'm walking around the gift shop and I'm like, okay, what can I buy? I didn't set a limit, but I said, what is a reasonable buy in all of this stuff? So I'm walking. I'm like, nope, not that. Nope, not that. Nope, not that. And then I walk, and this is what I do. And I do this no matter what store I'm in that I'm going to, in which I really don't want or need to shop. But I feel like if I just continue to walk around, I will eventually find something that I want to buy. And this is what happened. I'm walking around, and then I stop and I see these books. And I see, and the, if you haven't already figured out, I am very attracted to books by their cover. You saw, if you go back to my Tao of Pooh episode, you'll see that I had an episode of the Tao Te Ching with this beautiful blue, vivid cerulean blue, silky cover. It was absolutely gorgeous. And that's what attracted me to buy that book, right? And that's the same thing with this book. And it was blue, but it was Tiffany, what I call, or what is called Tiffany blue, is what attracted me. Now, at first, I thought, based on the cover, that it was about these damn cherry blossoms that people obsess over down here because it looked like that's what it looked like on the cover, the watercolor. And if you don't know, and if you haven't been down here, people up here are down here are obsessed about the cherry blossoms that were a gift from Japan many moons ago and were planted along the tidal basin in DC area, right near the Jefferson Memorial, I think, because I haven't gone to the festival. There's a festival. It's crazy. So that's what I thought when I first saw this book. And then I said, hold up, wait, what's this? There was a strange word, a strange Japanese word that was on the cover. And I said, okay, hold on a sec. So I started reading the dust jacket on the back, the dust jacket in the front pocket. And I started reading the first two pages. Now, this is a self help book. For all, probably, if you were to find it in a bookstore, it would probably be in the self help book aisle. And so I said, hmm. Now, and it's something about it resonated with me when I read the first two pages. It just resonated. And against normally, like I said, I went against everything and I bought the book. And in addition to that, I paid full price for this book. It was not marked down, but it was at a reasonable price. And again, I was attracted to the cover. Now, have you ever heard of the concept of Ikigai? If you haven't, let me introduce you to this concept. And it's more than a concept, it is a way of life. And it's it's sort of the book proposes or poses. The book poses the possibility that it is achieving the age of 100 and beyond is possible given these factors. One of these factors that leads to longevity, the book poses, is ikigai. All right. Now, Ikigai, the full title is Ikigai, the Japanese Secret to a Long and Happy Life, written by Hector Garcia and Francesca Mirares. All right. Um, so, as you can see, it's a very adorable. Let me back it up here for a second because it's got a whole kinds of light things going on here. All right, let's do it from there. Okay, so as you can see, this is what attracted me to this book. What if I do that? Ah, that's much better. That's much better. Better for my eyes, too. All right. So as you can see, the color, this Tiffany blue, is what attracted me to it. And the size, it's one of these sizes that's just so adorable. You can slip it into your bag and take it anywhere and just pop it open and start reading. And, and look at the printing, and it's got, visuals and stuff like that. So it's a different sort of self-help book that I've been have in my mind about to avoid. It wasn't that typical thing. So the reason why I was so drawn to this book is the explanation of Ikigai. All right. Now, Ikigai means the happiness of always being busy. That's what Ikigai is. It's always keeping your mind and your body engaged in activity. And when you do this, certain other things fall into place, and you can potentially live in full control of your mind and full control of your body. You can still, you're not sitting home in front of the TV. You are out there, you are active, you're gardening, you're meeting up with people to play games, to do golf or board games or table or cards or whatever. It's these activities that keeps us in the present, in the moment, and gives us purpose, because all of us struggle to a certain degree about finding purpose. People don't, there's some people that just don't care. They don't care about purpose. And there are others who are feeling lost, and they believe that maybe if they find their purpose, they can stay in this life and move forward and find some sort of contentment or happiness, right? So I resonated with this book because many, many moons ago, I taught a semester at the Coast Guard Academy. I taught English, composition, and speech, three sections of the most brightest students I have ever come across. And all of them, some of them got out, some of them stayed in, and they're like, I don't know if any of them, I don't know if any of them are captains yet, but I know quite a few of my students are lieutenant commanders, and I'm kind of proud of that. I like to brag. But when I was there, these were young folks, young people, exceptionally bright, who really wanted to serve and wear the uniform, and they respected me and I respected them. And because of that, they would often come in and we would have these wonderful conversations after I've helped them with their paper, of course. And with one student, he sort of was not really feeling the academy. Let's just put it that way. And he was a little bit stuck on what his purpose was. So it just so happened that I don't know what sparked me to do this, or maybe it was the conversation that sparked me to do this, but after I graduated from grad school, um, I sort of realized that I went through all that trouble to get that degree, and I wouldn't have done it had I not believed that writing is something is it's a gift. And I didn't realize how much of a gift it would be until I got my graduate degree. Let's put it that way. And I really didn't realize how much of a gift I had until I helped others who struggled in writing. And that's when I realized I took for granted something that I did so easily did not come easily to others. And so when I was sitting with this student and he was talking about he wasn't sure about his purpose, I said, you know what? I said, I know what my purpose is. And he was kind of surprised. And so I remember how I wrote it. Let me think back for a minute. I did write it down or typed it somewhere, but I don't remember. But okay, my purpose is to write. I will pursue opportunities that will allow me to further my purpose. It is not for me to question the nature in which these opportunities are presented to me. God damn. Yeah, that was it. That was it. Right. And so, student was amazed, and I was like, God damn, that's pretty dope right there. So that was that was sort of my mantra, my mission statement, my mission life statement. That's what it was. It wasn't to be the best writer. It wasn't to be the best-selling author. It wasn't it I drilled it down to its essence. My purpose is to write. Okay? So when I saw this book and it talked about purpose and what Ikigai is, I said, this book deserves a closer look. It deserves a closer look. Okay. So in this book, it talks about the island of Okinawa in Japan, where on average, people live longer. On average, in the like 100, 101 people live. Now, there are other factors, okay? Okinawa is an island. That means that their diet consists of fish, heavily consists of fish. And as you know, omega-3 is an excellent, excellent source um, of the building blocks that we need that help with lowering our cholesterol and boosting our memory processing. All right, fish oil is just that's what fish oil does for humans. And so so it's a combination of their diet. It is another factor on that island is they have I forget, it's in here. I'm not going to get too much into the weeds on this, but they have community. Okay, it's community. They have like little groups, sort of like Golden Girls, but a little bit larger, right? And they'll meet and they'll get together and either they'll play mahjong or not mahjong. No, I think I saw them. Yeah, they'll play games, they'll play tile games, or they'll sing, like they'll get together and they'll have like a chorus, you know, or they'll do all these things together. And that community, that interaction, that human interaction is also beneficial and what is a guiding factor in the longevity of these people on this island. And also another factor is Ikigai. Now, Ikigai is people in Japan do not retire. There is no word in Japanese for retirement. Okay. In Japan, you can exit your professional life and transition into something else that always keeps you busy. Ikigai, right? The happiness of always being busy. So you can transition into volunteer work. You can start a garden and maintain it and sort of have like a community swap of vegetables. These things you continue to do. This is not retirement. This is just in Japan, it's just another phase of life. All right. And you must always stay active. You must always stay busy. You must always keep your mind engaged, your hands, your fingers, your body engaged. And through these things in Okinawa, as well as in other areas, and I'll talk about that, you can achieve longevity as well as happiness and be in full control. All right. You're not helpless or anything like that. Pretty interesting idea, right? Because here in America, and I've heard this, that here in America, and I don't know if this has teetered off, but retirement was a killer for people here in America because they work so hard for so long and they operate under high levels of stress from these jobs that weren't like they are today, in which everything is considered. You know, back then it was like, oh, you have a problem, suck it up, buttercup, get to work, right? So they've been so they've been operating under this level of high stress, and when they retire they cannot handle, like, they really, they they can't handle that stress being that stress being taken away, and they wind up dying. People died in retirement because of it. So that's why ikigai is so important. That's why you must always stay busy. Okay. So, and also, yeah, they talk about the antioxidants and the tea, the green tea, because yes, in Japan and in China, they do drink a lot of green tea. And yes, there are certain beneficial elements to green tea that do play a role in longevity. But again, it's not just one particular thing. It is an accumulation of all these different things, these different approaches to lifestyle that sort of lend to the longevity. So now, um, now I'm going to go into a part of Ikigai because there's a Venn diagram. Okay, hope you can see this. Okay, there's the Venn diagram. All right. So up here in the Venn diagram, what you love, what you are good at, what the world needs, what you can be paid for. So it all overlaps into Ikigai, okay? Because you have profession, vocation, mission, and passion. So you have these four things that sort of overlap and contribute or play a role in what is Ikigai. All right. So now I said that Okinawa is an island or a region that has, on the average, people live longer. They live in past their 90s, sometimes into 100. And the Okinawa is one of several geographic regions or zones or blue zones, okay? And Dan Butner, who is a reporter for National Geographic, wrote an article about these blue zones. And they find that in these blue zones, which includes Okinawa, okay, here they are, not in any particular order. Okinawa, Japan, Sardinia, Italy, Loma Linda, California, Costa Rica, or the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica, and Icaria, Greece. There have been studies that were done in these regions, in these geographic regions, and the study plays out in which people on average live longer in these areas. Now, One of these has dropped off the list. And the reason why I know this is because Netflix did a special with Dan Butner. I think it's Butner, excuse me, it's Butner. And the series is called Live to 100. It's on Netflix and it's hosted and narrated by Dan Butner. And he goes and he visits these regions to show you or introduce you to people that are in their hundreds, that are still active, that there's one in Costa Rica, he's like 101. You would never know he was 101. He gets up every morning at like 4 or 5 in the morning. He does his chores, whatever, and then he takes a siesta in the afternoon. He gets up and he finishes whatever he needs to do for the day, and he's in bed by 8. All right. Now, Costa Rica, according to the Netflix special, according to Dan Butner, has dropped off the list of blue zones. The reason why it has dropped off the list is because fast food has crept into Costa Rica, fast food chains. Your Kentucky Fried Chicken, your McDonald's, they have infiltrated down in Costa Rica. And because of this cheap and easy fast food, it is quite possible that people will no longer live to 100 in Costa Rica like they used to. Okay, so it's I know it was interesting to hear that there is a city here in the United States that on average has longevity of its citizens. However, Loma Linda is home to the Seventh-day Adventist, and they have a lifestyle that sort of mirrors Ikigai without being Ikigai. It's amazing. All right. And I tell you that when I watched Live to 100, I did take away some of one very important thing I took away from the Seventh day Adventists, and I'll get to that. All right. So those are the blue zones for longevity. Okay. And what they found out about these zones is this. Not only do they live much longer than the rest of the world's population, they also suffer from fewer chronic illnesses such as cancer and heart disease. Inflammatory disorders are also less common. Many of these centenarians enjoy enviable levels of vitality and health that would be unthinkable for people of advanced age elsewhere. Their blood tests reveal fewer free radicals, which are responsible for cellular aging, as a result of drinking tea and eating until their stomachs are only 80% full. Women experience more moderate symptoms during menopause, and both men and women maintain higher levels of sexual hormones until much later in life. The rate of dementia is well below the global average. All right. So you can see why why this book is really it's more than just self-help. It's just something that I just connected to so well. And I just it's amazing. So moving on, because I'm just going to give you just certain highlights that I want to bring to your attention in the hopes that I tease and titillate you into not only buying this book, but also watching Live to 100 on Netflix. Okay. So one of the things, and I, you heard me talking about this, which was the number part of the number one killer for people in retirement, and I don't know if this is still the case, it's stress. Okay. Now, people really underestimate how stress can shorten your life. And it you never really understand how your stress levels are and how you operate under them until the thing that is providing the stress is removed. And I'll give you a perfect example. All right. So I think I talked about this in my introduction. I don't know. I don't remember because I recorded that 2 months or 3 months ago. But in 2008, 2009, I got laid off from my job with the state of Connecticut. And I got laid off the same year that I graduated from graduate school and got divorced. It was like a one, two, three punch. There was all kinds of stuff going on also with my children and stuff like that. It was horrible. So that Great Recession of 2008, 2009 was the equalizer because it did not matter what degree you had. Everybody was out of work and sucking wind financially. And I was no exception. My house went into foreclosure. I was negotiating, trying to negotiate with them. I was working part-time jobs. I told you I was working like 5 jobs at one point, just to pay, like, keep the utilities on in the house. So, but the thing is that I worked independently because I was contracted everywhere. I had a contract to teach here and a contract to teach there. I was working part time here on a contract. I was working part time here on a contract. And so the one thing that I noticed is that, yeah, I had to report to somebody wherever I would worked, but I was primarily like, I wasn't exposed to the stuff that you would normally be exposed to if you go to an office. And you people know what I'm talking about. You all like it's like the TV show, The Office. You always have someone who is all up in your business. You have someone that's talking about you behind your back. You have all of these cast of characters just like the office you will find in a real office, and operating with these groups of people sometimes on the worst end of it creates a certain level of stress. But I didn't have that as a contractor. Didn't have that. So I basically am freewheeling. I take what course is offered and I work my schedule around those courses. And I was driving all over Connecticut, but I didn't have to deal with that workplace drama. But the hustle is really tough when you're trying to juggle contracts. The hustle is real because they can get rid of you at any time, or the project can be done and they got no more work for you and they can let you go. So I figured, like, okay, things are getting better. It's 5 years. Let me see if I can find a full-time job. And I wanted to get in as a technical writer because at the time, I was just teaching and tutoring and, writing and proofreading, but no technical writing experience. And I really wanted to get into that. So I applied for a position at a contractor. I will not mention the name. For a contractor in Connecticut as a technical writer. And for 5 years, I I always said, when my mother and I used to have talks, and she used to tell me horror stories when she worked for JP Morgan Chase from the time that it was Chemical Bank. For all you old New York people, y'all know Chemical Bank. So Chemical Bank was bought by Manufacturers Hanover Trust, or Manny Hanny, and then JP Morgan Chase bought out Manny Hanny, and it became what it is today. And so my mother worked for JP Morgan Chase from the time of Chemical Bank. So she had been in corporate world, and she would tell me these horror stories. And I said, "Not I," said the cat. "You will never catch me working for a corporation. I will never do it." And what happens? I go to work for this contracting company. And 5 years made me realize why I said what I said, and I needed to stick to that. I'm not going to get any more into it. I said what I said, and I should have stuck to it because I operated under such bad stress working there. that my coworker had a blood pressure machine, one of those digital ones. And on the average, my blood pressure was 140 over 100 on average. I was eating crap. They have food trucks all out there. I had no earthly business going out there, but if it wasn't for the food trucks, there would be no variety because the cafeteria left a lot to be desired. Um, and so I was eating crap. I wasn't exercising. I was getting very little sleep, okay, because where I lived was an hour away. So you had to be there because parking was horrendous. If you didn't get there by a certain time, you would have to park in a lot that was really far away from the main campus, and you'd have to catch the shuttle at a certain time. Otherwise, you'd be late. You didn't want to be late because that becomes a whole big thing about making up your time, and they could write you up for it because it was basically run like the military. So, um, for 5 years, I would be, and plus I'm a night owl. It's very difficult for me to fall asleep at 8 o'clock unless I've had a really good meal and I caught the itis and I fell asleep. That's one of the rare times that I fall asleep at 8 o'clock. Otherwise, I normally don't get to bed until midnight. So working far away, an hour away, meant that I had to get up at a quarter to 5 in the morning, leave the house by a quarter to 6, get to campus by a quarter to 7, make sure that I got a space. Sometimes I would leave even earlier. And so that meant maybe 4 or 5 hours sleep if I can manage it. So just think about that. Having to drive an hour to and from work every day for 5 years. Any medical appointments were always a big deal, how to schedule them, because again, I'm an hour away and my medical appointments are 40 minutes further away. So if I have to go back to work, that's an hour and 40 minutes that I'm on the road. Okay. Imagine operating under that for 5 years, eating crappy, not exercising. I tried doing the exercising thing and I was good for a minute and then I just dropped off and I it was a difficult life. I felt myself aging. I was tired and cranky and just miserable. And then the pandemic hit. And that was a game changer because in order to keep operations going, they had split us into two teams. One team came during first shift, and the second team came for the second and third shift. So you had the option in order, if you wanted to stay on first shift or if you wanted to go to second. For our floor, it was either first or second shift. For the rest of the campus, the shipyard and things like that, there was three shifts. There's first, second, and third. So I chose to go on second shift, and that was the first time that I really actually had a full-time job in which I had to report, I think it was 3 to 11 p.m. And I found that time slot, it worked for me. I loved it because other people were going for first shift because they wanted to keep that. So that meant there were less people on second shift. And it was wonderful. It was wonderful. I didn't have to worry about being under a microscope. Um, did the best with whatever work that came my way. Got to chat with coworkers that I normally wouldn't be able to chat with. And I really loved that shift. And my stress level went down, way down. And then the return to work, my stress level went back up again. And that's when I said, I want to work from home. I had it in my mind, and I said, I don't want to work here anymore. I don't want to work. I don't want to go back to first shift. I don't want to have to do that again. I can't go back to it again. I had this taste of the good life. You know what that's like, right? You have this taste of the good life, and it's so good that you can't let it go. And you're like, how can I get more? So the wonderful thing about the pandemic is that remote work was possible. And I took advantage of that. And I found a job that allowed me to work from home. The job was out of California. It allowed me to work from home. And now I'm finally getting to the point that I'm trying to make. When I started working from home, I had been so conditioned by my job that I didn't realize that now that I'm home, I can work and watch TV or listen to music without having to worry about disturbing someone. So I kid you not, my first day at my new job, I did not turn on the TV. I did not turn on any kind of music. They gave me some manuals to read. I read the manuals and I sat in complete and utter silence, expecting as though I was expecting someone was watching me like they used to do at my job. That's how conditioned I was. That's some PTSD shit. I'm just saying. That's PTSD shit. Okay. And I was like that for 3 weeks until I snapped out of it. 3 weeks. I snapped out of it. And then life was good. I got another part time working from home and I was making good money. I didn't have to, because my gas tank, the oil changes, they took so much out of my pay. I did not realize it until I started working from home because I was putting like 100 miles on my car every day. That's 500 miles a week times four. That's 240, that's 2,400 miles a month I'm putting on my car. No, excuse me. 2,000 miles a month I'm putting on my car. I told you I was horrible at math. Stop correcting me. But that's what I was doing. And then, with that, you have to do frequent oil changes. And even though it was synthetic, right, sometimes I would let it go a little bit over 5,000 miles because oil changes are like $100 for synthetic in some places. So all that money was coming back to me. I was able to work another side hustle, and life was good. Life was great. I learned to sort of separate work from home, what's me being off duty versus on duty. And over time, it became addictive, and I found that I couldn't go back, especially when I saw what it was doing to my blood pressure. Ooh, blood pressure dropped. And then I was, this must have been spring of 2021. And I don't know what possessed me. I think I was bored or something because I had downtime. And I either bought a new bathing suit or whatever, and I went to try it on and I went, and so I thought, wait a minute, I'm working from home now, which means I can go for walks. And maybe I can get rid of some of this weight because I was like 100 in the 190s. Yeah, I was in the 190s, just shy of hitting 200. And I said, now that I'm working from home, let me focus on me a little bit because I was always on the go, jumping from one job to another. And this was the perfect opportunity to focus on me. So I started going for walks and I walked and I walked. And that summer I lost 20 pounds and had to get a whole new wardrobe. Okay. So Stress does play a very important role in not only your daily life, but it also affects other physical wise. It affects you. It does. It really, really does. And I managed to slow down. I managed to realize that I didn't have to rush everywhere, that I can take my time and get what I need to get done and do what I need to do without someone micromanaging me or looking over my shoulder. And I think that's what created the stress more than anything else. It was the micromanaging. It was the constantly looking over my shoulder, was constantly looking for something to hit me on. That's what brought out the stress or sort of compounded it. Now, this book says that a little stress is good for you. And this is true because that's from our flight or fight reaction to things. And with that comes stress. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sniffing cocaine for whatever reason. My nose is itchy. But a little stress is good. All right. It's necessary. It's not something that we can completely avoid unless we are comatose. All right. It's just even working from home, there are certain days when I do experience certain level of stress. Just saying. So what it does say is that sitting for long periods of time, that also sort of shortens your can shorten your lifespan because there's things are not circulating, this, that, and the other thing. So you know what I want to do is, before I get into it, I want to show you what I've been doing from home to sort of take some of the really good principles of Ikigai and sort of incorporate it into my home. Okay, so you're going to follow me over here. Let's see. Oh, it does. Oh, okay, awesome. All right, so let me take this mirror down before you freak out. All right, so here's my desk because I have a huge computer over here on my main desk. And so because I work from home, I had to have a separate desk. So what I did was I put in the money, right? This wasn't cheap, and I got a standing desk. I don't know if you can see this. Right. All right, there we go. You can see this, right? So I got a standing desk at home, all right? And this sort of stops me because when I'm writing or I'm really focused on something, I can sit for hours without moving as I write, which is not a good thing. And that's why I got this desk and I put in money, and it was a good investment as far as I'm concerned. All right. So that's one of the things that I paid attention to. Um, Actually, I bought this standing desk after I read the book because I thought that there was nothing in here that I saw as BS. No, all of it rang true to me, and I said, "What if I got to lose by trying it?" Right? So that's one of the things that I've sort of incorporated into my life from Ikigai. So here, so I'm going to read from the book. It's easy to be less sedentary. It just takes a bit of effort and a few changes to your routine. We can access a more active lifestyle that makes us feel better inside and out. We just have to add a few ingredients to our everyday habits. Walk to work or just go on a walk for at least 20 minutes each day. This is something that I still struggle with, right? Because I love to do power walks, which is sort of okay. This is how I lost the weight that summer of 2021, how I lost 20 pounds. First of all, I started using a probiotic that also had um, ingredients in it that sort of lend itself to weight loss. And it was really effective. However, I stopped using it because it was making me nauseous. But along with the probiotic, what I was also doing is I was taking long distance walks. I started off with a mile, and then I gradually increased it to the point that at my peak, I could do 6 miles. Right. I could do 6 miles and I wasn't hurting at all. And I would like to build back up to that. I really would. So what I was doing to for this fast walking is that I it's sort of stupid for me to say this, but I love music. I used to be a DJ at my university, my undergrad. I used to DJ on the campus radio station because I'm a communication major and my focus was radio and script writing. And so I wanted to go on radio. Radio has always been my favorite medium. TV, no, it was always radio. And I was planning on going into radio. That's what I wanted to do. But radio didn't pay well then, and I'm sure it doesn't pay well now. Some things don't change, especially since there's streaming and whatnot. But what I was doing is, so I was putting together playlists of music that would help me keep me going. And I would choose songs depending on whether I was going uphill or downhill. And if there was a certain place at a certain point on my route that I wanted to run, then I would choose a particular song that would give me the pace necessary to follow through the length of the song so that I could increase my increase my heart rate during the walk. Okay. So it was intermittent, you can say. It was an intermittent walk and run. So, for example, Shake It Off by Taylor Swift is an excellent song to run to because it's got a bouncy beat. And if you stay on the beat, and that song is fairly long, you can finish out it. That song is like 3 minutes and 36 seconds. That's enough to keep your heart rate up. So that's what I was doing. And so that's why I go for these long walks because I have a slow buildup. And then when I get to a certain point, then I run, then I walk again. And then if I feel it good, I'll run again to another fast song. And then I'll cool myself down with slower songs with slower tempo and slower pace. That's how I do it. So taking 20 minutes, that's like, if I'm going to get out there for 20 minutes, I'm going to stay out there for the whole hour and a half to do my 3 miles, my 4 miles, or whatever I'm doing. So it says use your feet instead of an elevator or escalator. Not a problem for me. I have 2 floors and I'm constantly going up and down the stairs, which is why I like this so well. And, I often thought about, well, what about if I get older? And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Those stairs are going to help me so that when I am older, it won't be such a difficulty going up and down those stairs because it'll be muscle memory. Okay. Participate in social or leisure activities. And this is where me visiting museums comes in. Now, I've been starved for a while. I haven't been to SAM, the Smithsonian American Art Museum, where I'm studying to be a docent. And that was the other thing that I was going to talk about, that when I got down here, I saw a prime opportunity now that I work from home to get back into being a docent again, which is part of the leisurely activities, part of Ikigai. So I basically harassed the coordinator of the docent program, and he remembered me. And when the time came where they were doing interviews for the docent program, I went and interviewed and I got in. And so through that, I'll be giving museum tours and I go there. And when I meet, and now I'm able to meet with my mentor, Phoebe. Hi, Phoebe, if you're watching this, if you ever watch this. Phoebe, I meet with Phoebe and she goes on school tours and I shadow her. And we, afterwards, we sit and we have a debrief. So the next one is replace your junk food with fruit, and you'll have less of an urge to snack and more nutrients in your system. Okay, I like I said earlier, I have allergies out the wazoo, so it's very difficult. I can't just have any fruit. Whatever fruit I do have, if it's grown on a tree or it's grown on the ground, it has to be skinned, and that's the only way I can eat it because I found out through an allergist that I'm not necessarily allergic to the fruit itself. I'm allergic to the skin and where it grows. Because for apples, they grow in trees and they absorb all the pollen as they grow. And that's what I am allergic to. So the only way that I'll eat apples is if I can dip them in caramel, which sort of defeats the purpose of having fruit. But what I have been able to do is increase fruit juices. And I'm very cautious about my fruit juices. I consider high fructose corn syrup to be a product of the devil. And I am very cautious when I'm in the supermarket. And I am the one that's being vigilant and I'm looking at the back of juices to make sure that they don't have corn syrup or high fructose corn syrup. If they do, I don't buy them. So I have found juice, the Simply brand of juice, all of their juices from their orange to their limeade, their lemonade, their strawberry lemonade, their raspberry lemonade, their limeade, their grape juice, their fruit juice, their pineapple juice, and there's another. None of them have high fructose corn syrup. So I buy those. Is it expensive? I really don't know. And I mean, I think that the expense is kind of worth it because I don't want to have high fructose corn syrup because not only is it bad for you, it interacts with my gut horribly, horribly. And I've had to have them go down my throat, not a tracheotomy. That's not the word I'm looking for. Um, uh, 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 when they take the camera and they go down your throat and they take a look at your gut, I forget what it's called. Not a colonoscopy. That's coming from the other end. Endoscopy. Endoscopy. They did an endoscopy because I had such bad acid reflux that if I had pork or anything dry, because my esophagus was so narrow, food would get stuck and I'd almost choke. I have choked. I've had to, you won't believe what I've had to do to get that food out of my trachea. In any event, so I'm very, that's me buying those fruit juices, those natural fruit juices. That's my way of having fruit. Okay. Get the right amount of sleep. This is something that I still work on, right? Because remember what I told you. Previously, I was operating on maybe 4 to 5 hours of sleep. And unfortunately, my my rhythm, my circadian rhythm is just trained on, the most I can get is 6 hours. So every once in a while, I will take a nap in the afternoon after 2. That is recommended. Adults can take naps, should take naps. Spain, when they have their siestas, they have it right. Okay? Because we hit a wall, and this is scientifically proven. I'm not making this up. You can look this up. We, as human beings, we hit a wall around 2 p.m., right? And if you've ever been at work, you've noticed that around 2 p.m., you're feeling kind of sluggish. You need to get up and walk around because you feel sort of like you want to go to sleep and you make the mistake of having a caffeine drink or to boost your energy level up. The problem is you shouldn't be doing that because that messes with your rhythm. For some people, I'm not saying all, I'm not saying blanket, but it can mess around with your circadian rhythm if you are using stimulants to get you through that 2 p.m. afternoon. Okay. So I've been working on that. So for times when I'm like, man, I could have slept longer, I will take a nap, 20-minute nap. And it's getting to the point, it used to be difficult for me to try and make myself take a nap. But naturally, I just do it. I just close my eyes and boo, right? I go into, there are different levels of sleep. Um, I do I think I do get hit REM. I think I do hit REM, but mostly I stay at the uh, I think it's theta stage. I think that's the stage where you're not all the way asleep, but you're still kind of awake, and that's where good ideas come, as a matter of fact. Just keep that in mind. All right. Also, another recommendation is play with children or pets or join a sports team. All right. This not only strengthens the body, but also stimulates the mind and boosts self esteem. And then finally, be conscious of your daily routine in order to detect harmful habits and replace them with more positive ones. Oh, where are we? Oh my days. I didn't realize I was talking for so long. All right. So I'm gonna speed this up because I didn't mean to talk that long. Okay. So sleep plays an important role in Ikigai. And what it does is it says, science has shown that sleep is a key anti aging tool because when we sleep, we generate melatonin, a hormone that occurs naturally in our bodies. The pineal gland produces it from the neurotransmitter serotonin, according to our diurnal, diurnal, I think that's how you pronounce it. I know. Imagine me having trouble pronouncing a word. Binaural, diurnal, and nocturnal rhythms, and it plays a role in our sleep and waking cycles. So, by getting proper sleep, it strengthens the immune system. It contains an element that protects against cancer. It promotes the natural production of insulin. It slows the onset of Alzheimer's disease, and it prevents osteoporosis and fights heart disease. All right. So that's one of the things that sort of play a role in why, and also why, when you look at these 100 years old people, when you watch, if you go and watch Live to 100 on Netflix, you will see that you're looking at them and it's hard. You have this vision in your mind of what a person at 100 looks like. But when you look at the guy that they previewed or they showed that was down in Costa Rica, he looked like he was in his 80s. Okay, now remember, I told you what his daily routine was. He's in bed 8 o'clock without fail, and he sleeps until 5 o'clock the next morning. Okay, and like I said, like if you really want to see this guy, go take a look. You never believe the guy was 100 years old. Okay, so there are other things that hold us back from achieving Ikigai, and one of them is what I mentioned earlier, is finding your purpose. When you find your purpose, you can do activities related to that purpose that keep you healthy and happy. Okay, so so part of Ikigai is also, so find no, I'm sorry, let me slow down a bit. Finding your purpose is going to help you find meaning in life, and that meaning will lend itself to other areas that will be part of your lifestyle, that will lend to that happiness and longevity. So there are certain, we all have baggage. I'm no exception. We all have baggage. And but the thing is that we don't always deal with that baggage. We take the baggage, we stack it up in the damn closet, and we leave it there until, someone accidentally twists the knob on the door handle, and all of a sudden it all comes crashing out, right? So that's why, some people, a lot of people go to therapy, go to psychotherapy, whatever therapy they need to sort of overcome the baggage that's been sitting in the closet. And it's been sitting there for so long that in many cases it affects relationships. It affects how that person with the baggage interacts with other people. And so that's going to naturally affect your ability to have community because you're still holding on to that baggage. So a part of Ikigai is recognizing that you need to let go of that baggage. You need to work it out. All right, because it's going to hold you back. So it says here, the search for purpose became a personal driving force that allowed um, people to achieve their goals, right? So there's this thing called logotherapy in which you sort of work out your issues to find your meaning and therefore find purpose. So the process of this, what's called logotherapy, can be summarized in these 5 steps. A person feels empty, frustrated, or anxious. The therapist shows him that what he is feeling is the desire to have a meaningful life, right? Because that's why we go to therapy, to work on all that trauma, that baggage, because we need peace from it. The patient discovers his or her light purpose. Of his or her own free will, the patient decides to accept or reject that destiny. This newfound passion for life helps him or her overcome obstacles and sorrows. Okay? So, logotherapy is a lot like psychoanalyst, right? There's a chart that shows the differences. Sorry, didn't mean to do that. There's a chart. If I can just show it, can you see that? Probably not. But this chart shows the differences between psychoanalysis and logotherapy. And there are subtle differences, but you know, for as far as what's the mission, what's the goal for a psychoanalyst, for psychoanalysis, the drive is toward pleasure. But for logotherapy, the drive is toward purpose and meaning. I think that's the key difference between psychotherapy and logotherapy. Okay. So they do have a recommendation on how you can do this on your own. In Japan, I think that's where I saw it. In Japan, what they do, yes, yes, it's called Morita therapy, like Pat Morita, a Karate Kid. It's called Morita therapy. No, it wasn't named after him. It was named after Shoma Morita, and he created this purpose-centered therapy in Japan. So here are the basic principles. I'll go over those when it comes to working. If you're not doing logotherapy, you can do this therapy. So first off is the basic principles is accept your feelings, right? You feel some type of way about a certain situation, a certain person, or the way you feel overall. Um, you have to accept those feelings. They're there. Stop trying to push them away because you're using more energy to push these bad feelings away instead of dealing with them and confronting them. All right. So, how many times, and this has happened to me, when you wake up in the morning, my mind is going a mile a minute. I don't know about you, but it's never a la 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 la. When I wake up, it's like that's what it's like in my mind sometimes. I never like wake up and stretch and no. Sorry. Okay. So let me fix this. Okay, cool. All right. So, but every once in a while, my mind will start going back to things that have been a lingering, tormenting me in my life, thus far. And so, um, I oftentimes start getting angry or feeling frustrated. My palms will start to sweat because I'm focused on one particular thing that's traumatizing and it's affecting me physically. That's how I know that, yeah, I'm in the danger zone, and whatever I'm thinking about, I need to stop thinking about it. So another therapy. Okay. So what happens is now when I feel these feelings, instead of trying to push them away or letting them intensify, I recognize the feeling. I say, okay, this is still an issue for me, but if I focus on it and work through it, eventually its effect on me will begin to lessen until it is not there anymore. And when I think about it, and I have no physical or emotional reaction to it, that means I have overcome it. All right. So, a second basic principle is do what you should be doing. Okay. And that means we shouldn't focus on eliminating symptoms because recovery will come on its own. We should focus instead on the present moment. And if we are suffering, on accepting that suffering, right? So it's basically saying suffering is a part of life, all right, and that's Buddhism, right? We cannot escape suffering. Suffering is all around us, right? But there's certain things that we can do so that we don't have to suffer anymore. I won't go into Buddhism so much, but that sort of plays a role in this part right here. All right, the do what you should be doing. Um, you should be acknowledging that the suffering is there, but you should also build up enough strength to withstand that suffering and then let it slide away or just ease off. Shake it off, you know, like Taylor Swift says, shake it off. And another, or the final main principle is discover your life's purpose, right? So there are 4 phases to this therapy, and and I think that therapy is like, I think it's 15 to 21 days, right? And there's certain phases. I'll let you find out what it is on your own. But after I read that portion of this book, I actually spent a day doing just that in total silence, looking back on everything that has always been an issue in my life, that has always brought a reaction to my palms. And what it basically says is just keep working on it, keep thinking about it, work through the emotions, whatever physical reaction you're getting, just roll with it, just keep working on it. And part of that process also includes meditation. So you're meditating while you are focusing on the things that have held you back in the past. And you know what they are. You know what you're trying to, what's always, you always say, oh, I'm not bothered by that. But then something triggers you and you realize that you're not really over it just yet. You know what those things are. So during meditation, that's what you're doing. You're going to focus on those things, confront them, confront the emotions, and basically work at ending your suffering. So meditation plays an important role in that. I will say that I need to improve on that. Honestly, sincerely, I really do need to improve upon that because I don't do enough meditation. And the thing is, my Apple Watch, you can set your Apple Watch to remind you when to meditate, and it's very cool. So I'm pretty sure they have this on the Google Watch or whatever other the Fitbit. I'm sure Fitbit also has a meditation feature on that watch that you can set. And with this one, there's haptics. I'm sure that if you know what haptics is when the thing starts vibrating and you can feel it vibrating on your arm. So that's what I do. And but I've sort of silenced the meditation, or I think Apple silenced it because it realized that I wasn't really using it. And I need to go back to that. And now the meditation for clearing the decks and moving forward, part of the Morita therapy, that requires more than just the 10 minutes that's allotted by the watch. But I did do that. I wasn't, I don't know if you're supposed to be in a dark room or whatever, but I already knew what my mission was, right? And I told you, I knew what my purpose was. But there are times when I feel that I get distracted from my purpose, and I need reminders. And I think that's why I do this series for you people, because it also benefits me. I get to share what I found can be extremely beneficial, while at the same time, I get to engage in books again. And I also, because I do the OG fact checker, that requires me to sit down and write and research. Now, these are all things that part of my purpose. I like to go down rabbit holes, and I'll go so deep down a rabbit hole, I'll be there for hours. And that's no exaggeration. I'll go from one thing, and then I'll find another thing, and I'll find another thing. And before you know it, hours have passed. Now, speaking of that, there is something that I do want to bring up that is important when it comes to Ikigai. And let me see if I can find it. Now, there is this, how can I explain this next thing? I'm trying to find it. I know it's here. There is, oh, here it is. Wait, just one second. Okay, so in response, in what I've just said is that there are times when I go down the rabbit hole and I'm there for hours, and before I know it, I'm down there for hours, and it doesn't feel like I've been down there for hours until I come up for air. I come out of the rabbit hole, and before you know it, it's been 2 hours. That is called the power in here, the power of flow. Now, all of us have experienced this flow, and it occurs when you're so focused or hyper focusing on a particular task that you're doing that you don't realize how much time has passed. The Atlantic did an excellent article on this, it talked about the scientifics behind the flow, what's going on with the brain. And it, for me, I always achieve the flow when I'm writing and when I'm researching. And Ikigai recommends slipping into this flow as much as you possibly can daily through tasks, whatever that task is, especially tasks that are related to your mission, your purpose in life. Okay. So, let me see if I can. Okay. All right. So here the book says, but what happens to our mind when we are in that state of flow? When we flow, we are focused on a concrete task without any distractions. Our mind is in order. The opposite occurs when we try to do something while our minds are on other things. If you often find yourself losing focus while working on something you consider important, there are several strategies you can employ to increase your chances of achieving flow. And here they are: knowing what to do, knowing how to do it, knowing how well you are doing, knowing where to go, where navigation is involved, perceiving significant challenges, perceiving significant skills, and being free from distractions. So, first strategy to all of these, to achieving this flow: choose a difficult task. Now, putting together the OG fact checker episodes, that's an extremely difficult task for me because it takes time. I can't just use one source. I use a variety of sources, right, to write those episodes. Now, yes, well, no, even when I'm using someone's biography for writing those episodes, I still dip and use like a newspaper article to support something that I'm writing. Those all come out of my head. And so even when I try to do them really short and quick, but I want to be thorough, I don't want to rush through the story. So I will give you what I give you, and however long it takes for me to get there is that's it, right? But it does require a lot of that mental processes for me to sort of find the story, weave the story within the episode, and make it engaging, right? And then finding the visuals to sort of illustrate everything that I'm talking about in those OG fact checker episodes. So I I think that's what sparked me into starting this YouTube channel, because this all is part of my mission, part of my purpose, part of why I'm here. I have this gift and I have this intelligence, and I don't want to keep it to myself. I want to share it, which is part of Tao, right? Because you don't want to be like Owl, you want to be like Pooh. So that's all part of this. And I like history. I love history, as a matter of fact. The older I get, the more I realize how all the rights that we have today come on the shoulders of people who stuck their necks out for us. And so I like to learn about these people and have them inspire me. All right. So choose a difficult task. Strategy number 2, have a clear, concrete objective. Like they say, video games played in moderation. Board games and sports are great ways to achieve flow. If you don't know, Michael Phelps has ADHD. And what makes him such an excellent swimmer is he's taken that negative, that weakness of ADHD, and flipped it into a positive by using his ability to hyper focus. All right. He is able to hyper focus. His ADHD allows him to do that. And that's why he was breaking records. He had good conditioning, good training, but it was the hyper focusing or achieving flow that allowed him to make or beat records and make records and win gold. All right. So with Michael Phelps, he has a clear, concrete objective. That's to get to the finish, to finish faster than anybody else. So he's able, like horses that have blinders, he's able to put on a mental blinder for both sides and focus. Boom. Okay. Okay. So there's strategy number 3, concentrate on a single task. There's this thing where this hyped up word called multitasking, but people mistake it for doing 2 things at the same time. That's not what multitasking is. Multitasking is being able to switch off from one